My girlfriend tried to make me erase all memories of my late brother and threw his things in trash, claiming we could start fresh. I refused and left her for good. I, 28 male, live in a modest apartment in a quiet part of the city, working a regular shift at a local manufacturing plant. Outside of work, I've devoted much of my time and energy to preserving the memory of my late brother, who passed away several years ago. We were extremely close, more like best friends than siblings, and losing him left a permanent mark on my life. I keep a few of his personal items, an old jacket he wore on road trips, a sketchbook filled with half-finished drawings, and a small guitar he loved to strum. These objects ground me, reminding me that he mattered and still matters. Several months ago, I met my girlfriend at a neighborhood gathering. She was friendly, energetic, the sort of person who easily befriends others. We started dating, and I introduced her to my apartment, pointing out my brother's belongings as cherished keepsakes. She showed some curiosity but never asked too many questions. It felt comforting that she didn't treat me like a fragile, grieving person. Instead, she seemed to accept that my brother's memory was a normal part of my life. At least, that was how it appeared in the beginning. As our relationship progressed, she started dropping small remarks. Once, she made an offhand comment like, "Does it really help you to keep all these things around?" I didn't read much into it then. Grief can be hard for outsiders to understand, and I figured she was just making conversation. I told her how much those mementos meant to me, how looking at my brother's sketchbook or picking up his old guitar brought me a sense of peace. She nodded, but over the following weeks, those little remarks increased in frequency. One night, over dinner, she sighed and said, "Sometimes I feel like you're stuck in the past." I asked what she meant. She shrugged, refusing to elaborate, but later that evening, I caught her looking at the guitar with a disapproving frown. It unsettled me, but I tried to brush it off. I began to suspect she had issues with my brother's memory. She rarely asked me about him, though I'd talk about him warmly whenever a memory surfaced. Instead, she'd changed the subject, acting as though I was bringing up something inappropriate or unimportant. On a couple of occasions, she even told me to focus on the present. I found it odd. Couldn't I honor my brother while still living my life? The tipping point came one weekend when she stayed over at my place. I woke early to make breakfast, leaving her asleep in the bedroom. After 10 minutes of flipping pancakes, I realized my phone was missing from the kitchen counter. Figuring it was in the living room, I walked in quietly and discovered her rifling through my brother's old jacket pockets. My heart lurched. She acted startled, then quickly placed the jacket on the couch, forcing a smile. "I was just tidying up," she claimed, ignoring the open pockets. I asked, "Why were you going through his jacket?" She only shrugged, saying the place was cluttered. I felt a twist in my stomach, but let it go, hoping it was a momentary lapse in judgment. But a deep worry settled over me. Something about her actions felt invasive, like she was scouting out how to remove reminders of my brother without me noticing. Shortly after that incident, she expressed an interest in redecorating. She offered to help reorganize my living room, rearranging furniture, adding new decor, and pointedly finding better storage solutions for old belongings. Her true goal, though, seemed to be moving my brother's items out of sight, as if storing them away would erase him from my life. That unsettled me deeply, but I tried to stay calm, refusing to let her box anything up. I insisted on only minor changes, like shifting furniture or painting walls, but I drew the line at touching his things. A few days later, we had our first major argument over the subject. It started innocently enough. She came over for dinner, but barely touched her plate, looking uneasy. Finally, she blurted out, "I can't relax here with all these reminders of your brother." Her voice carried an irritated edge. My posture stiffened. "Those are not just reminders," I explained calmly. "They're part of who I am." She exhaled sharply, setting down her fork. "You need to move on. Don't you think it's time for a fresh start? Maybe if you packed his items away, you'd feel better." I stared at her, stunned by her callousness. "These items don't prevent me from living," I said. "They help me remember him." Her response was a frustrated huff, as though I was being unreasonable. The conversation ended in tense silence. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept replaying her words in my head, grappling with how she believed tossing my brother's belongings could be equated with moving on. Why was she so fixated on erasing him from my space? Had I missed warning signs about her intolerance for grief? Over the following week, she escalated her campaign. One afternoon, she called, her voice bright but her words unnerving. I found a great storage facility. We can move all your brother's stuff there. She rattled off details about monthly fees, climate control, and how organized everything would be. I felt my chest tighten. She'd done this behind my back, as if it was her decision to make. I barely held back my anger. I don't need a storage unit for my brother's things, I said through gritted teeth. They belong here. She dropped the subject temporarily, but her resentment festered. The next few times we met, she seemed moody, dropping passive-aggressive comments. You'd be so much happier if you let go of the past, she'd say, or I'm just looking out for your mental health. The worst part was her insistence that she was doing me a favor. But her approach felt like she was trying to erase a part of my history. Then came the final straw. I had to leave town for 2 days to help a relative with a small property repair. My girlfriend offered to house sit, feed my fish, and check the mail. I accepted, trusting she'd respect my boundaries. On the second day away, I got an odd text from a neighbor. Hey, saw your girlfriend tossing some boxes in the dumpster. Everything all right? My heart pounded. Boxes? It had to be something from my apartment. But why the dumpster? I called her immediately. She answered, sounding slightly breathless. I asked what she was doing with boxes. She hesitated, then claimed she was just cleaning up old junk. I demanded specifics, but she deflected, saying she'd explain later. Alarm bells clanged in my head. The moment I finished helping my relative, I drove back, adrenaline coursing through my veins. When I arrived, I stormed into my apartment. She was there, sporting a guilty expression. It took me seconds to notice missing items. The jacket gone from the couch, the guitar stand empty, my brother's sketchbook missing from the shelf. I froze, fury rising in my chest. Where are they? I demanded. She tried to give me a soothing look, whispering, I put them in trash bags and threw them out. But it's for the best. Now you can start fresh. My vision blurred with anger. I pushed past her, racing to the dumpster area behind our building. Lifting the lid, I spotted 2 black trash bags. I yanked them out, nearly retching at the smell of rotting waste. My hand shook as I tore them open. Inside, my brother's jacket was crumpled, stained with spilled food. The sketchbook pages had partially torn, some smudged with garbage. The guitar was in another bag, the neck splintered. I stared in horror, tears burning my eyes. She followed me outside, trying to justify herself. I'm doing this because I love you, she insisted. You cling to those items like a crutch. You'll never move on if you keep them around. I looked at her, heartbreak and rage twisting in my chest. How dare you, I growled. These things are precious to me. They represent my brother's presence, something you'd never understand. She fired back, stop living in a dead man's shadow. You have me now. That sentence felt like a slap. The callousness, the utter lack of empathy. In a surge of fury, I told her to get out of my sight. She tried to protest, but I repeated, leave. No. My entire body trembled, repulsed by her gall. Once she stormed off, I carefully salvaged what I could from the trash, tears streaking down my face. The jacket might be salvageable with cleaning, but the guitar looked beyond repair. The sketchbook, battered and soiled, still held some intact pages. I held it against my chest, sorrow morphing into steely resolve. No one had a right to erase my brother like that. Inside the apartment, I laid out the damaged items, trying to salvage them. At some point, I realized she was texting me, a flood of messages, half apologies, half blaming me for making her do it. I ignored them. My neighbor knocked on the door to check if I was okay. I told him I'd handle it. The next morning, she showed up in person, pounding on my door. My anger hadn't subsided, but I opened it, wanting to hear her twisted explanation face to face. She launched into a spiel about how I'd thank her one day, and how my brother's memory was holding me back from our future. Her entitlement was breathtaking, acting like she knew what was best for me, ignoring the heartbreak she caused. I held up the ruined guitar. Do you see this? I asked, voice low. It was one of the last things my brother played. Now it's cracked because you threw it in a dumpster like trash. She rolled her eyes, muttering that it's just an old instrument. Rage flickered again. I realized she would never comprehend the value of these keepsakes, nor the depth of my grief and love for my brother. She tried to push past me, presumably to gather any remaining items she thought should be thrown out. I blocked her. "You're not welcome here," I said through gritted teeth. She seemed stunned, then started ranting that I was overreacting and that if I truly loved her, I'd appreciate her help in cleansing my past. That was the final nail in the coffin of our relationship. I told her in no uncertain terms, I can't be with someone who disrespects my brother's memory. "We're done." She screamed, calling me obsessed, claiming I cared more about a dead brother than my living girlfriend. I held firm. My voice shook, but I forced out the words, "Get out and never come back." She stormed away, cursing under her breath, hurling insults. A neighbor peeked out from their door, alarmed by the commotion. I closed my own door with trembling hands, tears I've been holding back finally flowing. For a few minutes, I just stood there in silence, breathing heavily, letting the emotional weight crash over me. My brother was gone, and the last tangible pieces of him had been partially destroyed by someone who claimed to love me. In the aftermath, I turned off my phone for a day or two, not wanting to see her messages or calls. My friends, once they heard, were outraged on my behalf. I told them I was done with her, that the relationship was beyond repair. A few of them helped me clean and restore what I could of my brother's items. We found a local luthier who said he might be able to fix the guitar's neck, though it would never be the same. The sketchbook pages needed careful preservation. Some were lost, but many survived. Legally, there was little I could do about the destruction. She hadn't stolen items for resale. She'd just thrown them out. My friend who knew some law said I could theoretically pursue a civil claim for property damage, but it seemed messy. I was more focused on healing. I cut all ties, changed my locks, and alerted building management that she was not allowed onto the premises. Some might think it extreme, but after witnessing her callousness, I wasn't taking chances. She tried to smear me on social media, telling mutual acquaintances I was crazy and obsessed with the dead, but they mostly saw through her. Many reached out privately, offering condolences and support. A couple of her close friends tried to text me with guilt-laden messages about how she just wanted to help me move on. I ignored them. Nothing could excuse her disrespect toward my brother's memory. With time, I found a sense of calm returning to my life. The battered jacket was professionally cleaned, and though it bore faint stains, I still wore it occasionally. The guitar was patched up enough to hang on my wall, a silent tribute to my brother's love for music. The sketchbook, though irreparably damaged, remained a cherished keepsake, every intact page a reminder of who my brother was. When I reflect on the entire ordeal, I see it as a lesson in boundaries and empathy. My ex-girlfriend, really never truly respected my loss or my emotional ties. She tried to rewrite my life story in a way that suited her vision, disregarding my right to keep my brother's memory alive. And in doing so, she revealed a cruel streak I couldn't forgive. Leaving her was the only option. Even though heartbreak lingered, I knew in my core that no relationship is worth sacrificing my brother's memory or being forced to erase someone who meant the world to me. Some memories deserve preservation, not disposal. If she couldn't grasp that, then she had no place in my life. So I walked away. And in that decision, I found a new sense of self, one that honors the past while still stepping forward. My brother will always be part of me. No one can change that. The woman who tried, well, she's out of my life for good. If that leaves me single for a while, so be it. I'd rather be at peace with my memories than trapped in a relationship that demands I discard them.